Welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast. Happy New Year edition. Last pod of 2024. As we start a new win streak in 2025, book it, mark it, write it down, set it here first. We got a full house to close out the year. You got Parker, you got Matt, you got myself, Andy. Parker, how you doing?
Bad. I'm bad. Couldn't say it quick enough. I'm fine. It just, what a bad match today. Collectively, the performance was so subpar. And we've always talked on this podcast about what faith does, like what opportunity to do well. And I know we weren't title contenders, as said by just about everybody, but I felt like we had a string of runs, string of matches that went our way, and then the latter part of December really reared its ugly head in us, and it just sucks. So it's funny how when you care a lot about the team, what a loss does to you, does to the morale, and does to the club itself. So it wasn't a great day for Chelsea, but in personal life stuff, everything's great. We're winding down the year, heading off to Mexico City soon to cheers my little brother on his wedding. So that's coming up soon. And yeah, life is great. Little man's doing awesome. He's 8 weeks old today, and it's wild that he's 8 weeks old already. And it feels like he's been a part of our lives for a year now, and he's changing every day. So life with the little one makes things, puts things into perspective, because he's all dressed up in his Chelsea onesie today, and match is over. Wife brings him up, and I hold him and look at him. He starts smiling and giggling at me, and I'm like, all right. I can't be mad. It's fine. Everything's fine. So that's me. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, doing good. I had a partial day off, my first day off of my 3-week vacation. So it was enjoyable. I got to watch the Chelsea game in peace by myself. The missus was at work. The little guy was in daycare. It was fantastic. Um, yeah, unfortunately, just this is a shitty game to watch. But no, everything was good. We just my wife was working over the weekend. So me and little man spent some good quality time together. Just kind of hanging out, doing whatever, hung out with some friends, and checked out their new house and whatnot. And they have two younger kids too, so we went to a nice kind of play park, and just all indoors. So just let the kids go to town and tire them out before a nap and call her a day. But yeah, all things considered, shitty Chelsea match, but we're here. We're podding. Couldn't ask for much more. Collins, how are things with you, man?
Like I said to you guys in the group chat, I'm just glad we get to close out the year all talking together. Shitty game or not, um, we always talk about the wild ride this pod has been, and when this pod releases, New Year's Eve day, it will be the 3-year anniversary of Romelu Lukaku's interview with Sky Italia coming out, which, as we know, was the start of the downfall of this club. So, cheers to that anniversary, boys. No, it was good. Went to Highbury, vibing, was supposed to work, and all that good stuff. My Mark Cucurella jersey came today. Very excited about that. And I gotta get the Mark Gu third kit. That's on its way. So can't complain. But as you two both alluded to, shitty game, huh?
Shitty week.
Fair. Where Parker, where do you want to start?
I think chronologically makes sense, even though the Ipswich match was most recent. Take it back to what we saw against Fulham. I think start there.
So Cole Palmer worldy, and two two Fulham wanted it more goals. Seal Fulham's was it first win at Stamford Bridge in about a decade, 14 years, 15 years, something like that. Yeah, not a great last 60 minutes in that one. Um, but we do need to have a positive in this pod. So anyone want to give a breakdown of that Cole Palmer goal?
Parks, go ahead.
Um, the funniest thing I saw about that goal was, and I can't remember the guy's name. He's a famous YouTuber that talks about Manchester United, Mark something
Goldrich.
Goldrich, thank you. And the game was on, and he was asked, do Chelsea have any current world class players? And he was talking about how maybe they have a couple in the wings that are going to be world class. He's like, I have to admit, without Cole Palmer, you know, doing it in Europe and doing it for the English national team yet, I can't give him that. And as he's about to finish his sentence, he chokes on his world. Fuck it, he's world class. He's absolutely world class. He goes off and scores a world class goal. Right as I'm about to tell him he's not world class, he's absolutely world class. So to listen to a United fan see it in real time and his reaction in real time. I mean, he gets the ball in the middle of the pitch. He makes three guys miss, and he just perfectly slots it. It's about as good as they come. It's Aiden Hazard esque. It's all the attention's on you, all the eyeballs on you, and you still make everybody look silly. And like I said, when a United fan watches that goal in real time and just chokes on his words and just goes, "Yep, he's world class" after that goal, that I think that sums it up for me.
Yeah, absolutely world class. That was, I only had the pleasure of listening to the game, but the way it was described absolutely was Hazard esque. Um, but Matt, then we had a couple lapses in judgment, lapses in whatever you want to call it. Uh, two goals for Fulham. Why?
Pick your poison. It just it's our defense, right? We talked about it a lot. It's a very shaky defense. We leave ourselves exposed a lot. It I don't know. We saw a lot more of it in the Ipswich game, which we'll definitely get into, but it's just that there's a constant lack of focus at crucial times. And that's what often leads to us being put in situations we don't want to be and then conceding goals. Um, it's something that has to get better. Yes, we do have a lot of injuries and stuff on our back line, but still, these are a lot of this stuff is like elementary, very simple, basic things that we need to do, and we're just not doing them right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that carries over to the Ipswich match. Not to immediately change subjects, but they both kind of line up here. Uh, defensive mental switch offs, I think, is the big one. We saw all match. I'm just thinking of the Delap goal, not the Delap, the Hutchinson goal.
Mark.
Yes, Omari Hutchinson. Thank you, my guy. You know, Delap had been chasing down balls, Jackson esque, very very high on the press, trying to cut off balls the whole time. Disasi at right back is not an ideal thing. He's a serviceable center back, not a great right back, and you can tell he's playing out of position there, and just a mental lapse. Should have known Delap would be there. Should have known Delap would be chasing down any ball he sent back. Should have went to the keeper if he was going to go back, but instead played a short-ish ball to the center back, and from there Ipswich go and score. But just another instance of defensive switch off.
I had a
I would say even with that, yes, it was like it was like everything, right? You have the bad back pass. He gets back. I give him all the credit in the world for that. He got back, he got himself in a good position, and then he didn't do anything defensively to try and make an effort to stop it. He just kind of stood there. He didn't even stick out a leg or anything. He just kind of stood there and left the lane wide open for Hutchinson to shoot. Like he knew he fucked up. He got back good, and then he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, I guess we'll just let him shoot. He probably won't score." Like, no. You watch the replay, he is literally flat-footed, not making a move towards Hutchinson. He's just kind of there. It was just bad, kind of all the way around from Disasi. If you make a mistake, good. You get back, you try and help it, help your own case, kind of dig yourself out. But then when you don't even make an effort on to block a shot or even do anything like that, that's unacceptable. It's just bad all around.
This team has made mistakes and prevailed before. I mean, Tottenham is the most recent in history where Kukurea had two slip ups and we gave away two cheap goals. And then we, took the game to them for the next 82 minutes or whatever it was, or 72 minutes and really pressed them and ended up getting a nice result there. And I don't think we have had the same intensity, tenacity, drive, will, desire to do that against either team, really, against Fulham or Ipswich. Different circumstances, different situations, but we should have been up 3-4-0 on Fulham, gosh, even in the first half. We had a lot of really good opportunities to really put that game out of reach. And you can go back and watch the live tweets that I was doing for the club Twitter. I got increasingly worried because as time moved on, Fulham clawed back into the game, and as we couldn't put distance between the two of us, they were knocking on the door. They were asking more questions than we were, and they kind of found a way to make it happen.
So I like that you brought up, the Tottenham game, and we made up for mistakes there. The common thing in this, and this is sure to be another topic here. I'm going to drop this term right now. It's a poor run of form. In this poor run of form, is these are low block teams. Fulham sat back for much of the game, tried to strike on the counter. Ipswich, all 11 men, well within their own half. Everton, notorious for that. Now, I'm not going to relate this to the first or to Everton or Fulham, but the Ipswich, this game specifically, man management was a big issue as to why we couldn't correct that mistake. It was the wrong personnel in that match, at least for me. And Kunku, there's been smoke around wanting to leave, and Maresca addressed himself saying, "Hey, if he wants to leave, I told him I'm not going to hold him back." Throwing him out there. Zhao and Cole Palmer playing at the same time, which Maresca said 2 weeks ago. Those two, they play the same position. They're not going to play well together. And they played fine. I wouldn't say either was necessarily a world beater in this one. But you really didn't have anything to match up with what Ipswich was doing. I understand Disasi at right back, physicality. You want some physicality in there. Enzo Fernandez kind of covering for him in that midfield with a right back who's got some physicality. But outside of that, it was a bunch of guys who slowed the game down. And when you're playing against a low block team, there's no point in slowing the game down. It's already being slowed down by the opponent. This would have been a perfect game. God, I wish he was still here, but Mihailo Mudryk would have been a good one. Jadon Sancho starting, Neto starting, Nicholas Jackson starting. Any of these guys that are high energy, high press, a little bit of physicality would have done a better job breaking down this low block than guys who are more technical and slowing down the game, almost Raheem Sterling-esque.
So I think Disasi at right back was the worst decision we could have made, because I can't remember Liam Delap going up against Disasi once. So if we're saying Disasi is there for physicality, he didn't do any of that. I didn't see any of that out of him. And what's even more, I guess, frustrating about that decision is you have both of your right backs on the bench. You have Malo Gusto and you have Reece James. I'm not expecting Reece James to start. I'm not even expecting him to play unless it was an absolute emergency and Disasi got hurt and Gusto for some reason got hurt. Then maybe you throw Reece James on. But why it doesn't make a lot of sense why you would start another center back at a right back when you have your two right backs on the bench.
So
Didn't make a lot of sense to me.
So Matt, I'm not saying that Disasi went in and did his job and he was physical and he's playing
Right.
against Delap and all that.
Right.
I'm saying I understand the thought process.
I do to an extent. So they weren't dangerous going down the left side at all. They had nobody on the left side. So yeah, you can throw Disasi out there as just a general, okay, fine, he'll fill in at right back. They don't really go down the left side all that much. And they really didn't, right? Everything was run centrally and to the right with Hutchinson. I'm fine with that. However, it and a little bit of this is hindsight, right? We know about the mistake and everything like that. But at the same time, just the decision to play Disasi as a right back when you have your two other right backs on the bench. That to me is confusing. I didn't understand that. I didn't mind Zhao. I didn't mind to start. I didn't mind Nkunku up top. Right. We know Jackson's been playing a lot. He's kind of cooled down a little bit in recent games, which perfectly fine. He's been off to a hot start this year. He's kind of cooled down a little bit. I was okay with it. And if you look at it on paper, right, and we've talked about this a couple weeks ago, this is a team where a lower team in the division. This is where you can throw out some of those other guys who have been playing more in the conference league, maybe get them a little bit more Premier League, exposure or whatnot, right? We talked about Philip Jorgensen. When's he going to play? And we all were kind of in the same mindset of this would be a game for him to get some Premier League experience. And I had no issue with that. So I didn't necessarily have an issue with the lineup. The issue that I had was nothing was done quick enough. Noni was useless, about as useless as I've ever seen him be. He should have been subbed off at half, if not earlier. I think somebody like Neto gives you more creativity. Zhao, I was fine with. I think he presented more creativity outside of Cole Palmer. Again, we know what Zhao can do against a team with a low block. I think he's somebody who can be intricate in those positions and find those little gaps and pop up in those little spaces that where there's not many. So I was fine with that. Disasi at right back, I get it, but to me, didn't make a lot of sense. And Jorgensen, I get it. Like on paper, yes, this shouldn't have worried anybody. We all should have been fine. But at the end of the day, everybody just played like dog shit. Like that's really what it is, right? Everybody just played like shit. I think I sent you guys the gif of from Rocky 3 throwing the damn towel in like the 60th minute. Like nothing changed at half. We couldn't even hold possession of the ball for the first 20 minutes of the game. Ipswich came out. They set the tone. If any of you guys have watched Shoresy, rule number one, set the fucking tone. Liam Delap did that within the first 10 seconds when he just went and bulldozed either Tosin or Colwell. I forgot who it was, but he just bulldozed them. This is a team that is scrapping and clawing for every single point that they can get. They see a team like Chelsea and they say, we've got nothing to lose. We're expected to lose, so we might as well go out and give it hell. And sure enough, we're in these last, I would say, two matches specifically, we're reverting back to a point where just because you are a Chelsea player makes you think that you've earned the right to secure a victory just because you wear the jersey. We're not at that point. We are not good enough. We have a lot of talent, but we're not good enough based on talent alone. We started as a really good team. Now we are going back to everybody being individuals and trying to do it themselves. Look at the limit of link-up play in the Ipswich match. Not a lot of link-up play, a lot of errant passes. I don't think I've ever seen so many errant passes before in a match. Everything was just bad. We walked in there like we just deserve the win regardless. And look what happened. That's all on Chelsea. Everybody needs to be better.
It's well said, Matt. I like that. The only other thing I want to add to kind of the personnel discussion is around two players. One, I don't think Tosin's good enough to be on this team. Period. Don't think he's good enough as a center back. And we miss West Fofana than more than we are all willing to admit, I think. They were starting to him and Colwell were starting to have like a pretty decent pairing together and get some pretty nice chemistry going after a rocky start from Fofana. But now with the injury, I think he's being missed. And then the other one, and this is a big time eat my own words because it's a player that I've shit on more than I've ever complimented, is Romeo Lavia. I think Lavia gives you some stability in that midfield that I think we're desperately lacking. And I like Enzo Fernandez a lot. I just don't know always if he's the right guy and how we should line up. And I think the Caicedo Lavia look gives us a different, chance to really like lock down our side and then allow the guys who get forward to go get forward while the center of the pitch just remains like an ironclad fist. So I think I miss Lavia a lot more than I'm willing to admit, because the link of form directly ties to the matches that he has not been playing for us. So, but the thing that really just pisses me off is we scored 1 goal in 3 games. You can't expect to do anything with 1 goal in 3 games. We scored against Fulham, again, the worldie, a goal that probably when Cole Palmer gets that ball has an XG of 0.002, like a no XG, right? Like should not be in a position to score, finds a way to score it, right? That's the only goal in the last 3 matches. We don't score against Everton. We score 1 against Fulham, and we don't score against Ipswich. So we got to find a way to get the ball in the net. Everyone's cold. No one's scoring in those situations. So we have to find ways to break down teams. And again, I agree with your point, Matt, about Joao Felix. The one thing that I was curious about when I was watching the match, because of the comment you made, Collins, about Felix and Palmer probably shouldn't be playing in the same 11, is Maresca afraid to bench Cole Palmer? Give him a rest, right? Like not even bench him, right? Just give him a rest. I think Cole's earned it. We saw what the consistent run of matches did to Enzo Fernandez last year, where he didn't sit a minute and it just got to him. If you bench Palmer, you start Felix, and then you get Sancho out on that left wing, I think we have a different way of attacking this team. And I know hindsight, we can't just sit here and play armchair quarterback, say what would have worked if we would have gone out with this lineup and beat Ipswich 4-0. None of us are saying any of this, but it's the situation we're in because we're looking at the match and we said something didn't work, and something about the way we lined up, wasn't it. But Joao was creative. He did put the ball in the back of the net. He was a half step offside. Wasn't super mad about it, but he did find the way into the goal. Did provide some creative looks. Palmer hit the post, and he was a fraction away from scoring on a direct free kick. We were close. It was a close match. I know we've sat here for the last 25 minutes and just kind of berated our team and said how bad we were. We weren't great, and we also had the chance to still kind of pull something out. So there is some positivity there.
And I understand the mindset of not benching Cole Palmer, right? He's your best player, far and away. What do you have? 47 goal contributions in 2024? Some crazy number like that. When you're in a bit of a tough streak, I understand you want your best guys out there. But I think what this little streak has, at least in terms of bearing fruit, is showed us exactly what those needs are as we head into January, as we head into 2025. We all knew goalkeeper was probably top of the list. I think today solidified that. Center back, obviously we had an inkling that maybe we could use a center back, but these guys in the past have performed well. You either need to trust Achimpong as your third right back or go and get a new one. You can't run with Reece James, who's out for half the season, and then Malo Gusto, who gets overused and gets fatigue injuries. But you also need a number 6 talking about players who are out for extended periods of time. Romeo Lavia, he's a great player when he's in. We've talked about that. But you can't rely on him at this point. You need him to build up some fitness, show over time that he can play consistently. You need some backup for Caicedo and Enzo because, yeah, we saw what happened to Enzo when he played every single minute of every single match over the course of half a season. The same thing's going to happen if we don't have any reliable depth at that number 6 position. Striker, though, I would say not really top of the list for me. I know we already talked about Nkunku's not a 9, and Parker, you'd mentioned pre-pod, like, well, where does he fit, right? Because he doesn't really fit on the left either. I think he's another guy who fits in that 10 role. But Jackson, Matt, as you said, has had a pretty decent season. He's in a little bit of a tough stretch right now, but so is the rest of the team. Mark Gu is the leading scorer in the Conference League. Take that for what you will. Then you still have David Washington sitting in PL2. So I think you have options there, but I think there's much more pressing needs than a number 9.
I think like a veteran center back is something you can go out and buy in January. Someone that does just kind of slot in and fit. That can just be a staple for you. Someone that can not play every week, but just kind of rotate in for you and give you good minutes and provide some leadership to young defenders. I think I don't want to say his name because we can't compare anyone to the GOAT, Thiago Silva. But someone like him. Someone like Thiago Silva in the sense of a veteran center back who can teach the youth. I said it the other week that he'll go down as one of the greatest transfers we've ever done, or bits of business we've ever done. So can't replicate that, but someone we can get in for that.
Can I throw an obscene name at you?
Please.
Better than anybody I know.
Touche. There's a club that's going to be selling off a lot of players for their new manager, doing a Chelsea-style rebuild. They've got a veteran center back. He's got a big old forehead.
Harry Maguire.
Would you go out and get him on the cheap?
Depends how cheap.
I don't even know the number. I don't even know what he's worth, but cheap enough.
No.
I'd get him for cheap. The one I wouldn't bring in is Rashford.
Why is that?
Because I think Rashford's a head case, and I don't want any more United scraps. to be completely honest about it, I think he's a good player. I don't think he's as good as he was touted to be. I think for 20, it's an intriguing buy, but I don't want to roll the dice with guys who are head cases. We got too many of those already.
It's going to be a no for Harry Maguire because I have yet to see him do anything productive since he went to Man United. Like, I still, and I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. I have yet to see anything positive come out of that transfer for Manchester United and even for England, even for the international team. No, like, no. I don't know how else to say it. Rashford it's interesting, but I think it's overkill. We already talk about all the depth that we have on the wings, right? What's the reason for bringing in yet another winger who's on right now? He's currently at 325,000 a week. I don't think he's going to take a big restructure just to come to Chelsea and play limited minutes. I don't see that happening for whatever price that is. It worries me that we fall into another Raheem Sterling trap of, well, he's being paid this much, so you gotta play him. I don't want that to happen. So although it's intriguing, that's also a no. I don't see either one of them adding any sort of value.
Fair enough. Well, as we approach January, we do have to look back on No Remember December. Matt, you've always pegged December as Chelsea's hell month. In fact, a couple weeks ago, we previewed December, in which we were saying, half the points would be, you know, it would be an okay result, right? Um, Chelsea have gone 6 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses in the month of December. Yes, we ended it with 2 losses and a draw, but is it really a no remember December?
I think what's really tough about the 2 losses is I could handle the 2 losses if they were to better teams. And that's what's gonna stick out in this whole thing is we lost and we drew to lower table teams in this whole thing. Fulham, not so much, right? They're kind of, seventh, eighth. They're kind of hanging around that conference league spot. But in Everton and Ipswich, those are matches that you should win. Looking back, Tottenham, that one could have gone either way, right? That's fine. Villa, we took care of business there. Um, Brentford was 2-1, which we handled most of that, and they got a late goal at the end. But to me, it's the matches that we lost. I think that's what's gonna stick out in this whole thing. But it's better than most of our Decembers, so I take that. It's been better than what we've historically seen. So I'll take it. I'm not thrilled with how we're ending December and going into the new year, but at the same time, I think we've proven what we can do. Now, the only question I think for this team to prove, because they haven't been up against this yet so far, is how how do they bounce back and how quick can they bounce back? I think that's going to be the biggest question heading into the new year.
So Parker, before we get your take, Matt, let me follow up with you on that in terms of strength of schedule with the losses draw or with the drop points. We'll say Fulham, I 100% agree. The Fulham is riding high right now. They're a top mid-table club. They're very offensive. Match could have gone either way, is at least in my opinion. Everton has drawn all of the big clubs. I I don't see us drawing them necessarily as a negative result when you look at Everton's run of form, when you look at who they have gone up against and who they have
Yeah.
matched. So really, it again, this is just me projecting, I think, but it sounds like a little bit of recency bias based off of today a loss that you can't excuse.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like if you look at the results as a whole, right? 6 wins, a draw, 2 losses. For me, that's a positive December. What stings when you start looking at it in more detail is those 2 losses right at the end of the year after we've been on such a good run of form, both in the Premier League and outside of it. And then you go up against two lower table teams. Everton, yes, we knew what they were going to do. They're just going to sit back and hunker down. Ipswich, again, lower table team. They came in and just kicked the shit out of us, basically. Like they really did, physically and at some points mentally. They just, honestly, they just kicked our ass. And I think that's so when we ask this question, do we think it was a positive December? Those last 2 games are the ones that kind of stick out, right? Or those last 3, the draw and the 2 losses. But again, if you look at just the stats in December, 6 wins, a draw, 2 losses, positive. I'm good with that. I just hope that the last 2 don't carry over into January. I could have swallowed that pill a lot easier had it been, you know, whatever happens with Villa, if we somehow draw points there, fine. The Tottenham game, the 2 Kukurea slips, that one easily could have been 3 points dropped, right? I would have been like, okay, like, I can live with that. Like that at least shit happens, but we pulled that one out. The other ones are kind of inexcusable. As far as Fulham, right? That was just real shitty. It was the start of what we saw in Ipswich. It was the start of that carried over into Ipswich. So those 2, I think, it's all on us. And we just have to be better. But positive December for me.
I got a couple takes here. As far as strength of schedule goes, we didn't play a strong December. The teams that we played are today in 8th, 9th, 11th, 12th, 16th, and 18th. So Fulham is the best team that we played, and we lost to them. My criticism against this team all year has been we haven't beaten anybody. We haven't beaten anyone big. You can say that the win against Tottenham is a big win because they're a rival, they're crosstown rival, but they're in 11th this year. And if we're looking at a draw against Everton who's in 16th as a positive because they've drawn other big teams, they're in 16th place. Like they're in 16th place for a reason. They've lost games too. So I get that the big guys have drawn them, but like I don't view that as a positive. I view that as an absolute negative or a way we can take a step forward on our rivals. Because if we can't beat our rivals, if we can't beat Liverpool and City and Arsenal and those guys, we got to make up points on the fixtures that they drop points on. So I don't look at it as a positive. We beat Astana and Shamrock in there. I don't give any stock to that. We didn't even have to play those games, and we would have pushed on in the conference league. So those are very whatever games, especially the Shamrock game or was it the Astana game where we played basically a U18 team. So I put nothing into those. The two things that gives me a lot of concern. One, Colin, something that you said after the last podcast was, Everton draw, not a good result. Now it's on Maresca to adapt. Now it's on him to, see how he bounces back after a not good performance. He bounced back with 2 consecutive losses. So now it's really on him to show where he can be because people have written the script on how to beat Chelsea now. Now there's a game plan on how to beat Chelsea. And it looks like it's a pretty easy game plan to execute. And it's been the game plan to execute for the last 5 years. Like who's kidding here? But and a team that was flying high, that was scoring goals for fun, that was putting in 3, 4, 5 against pretty much everybody, you can slow them way down. So that game plan can work for teams. And the other thing I wanted to mention was a little bit about your recency bias. We in the Premier League, we had 13 points out of 21. Last December, we had 12. Not that big of a step up. It's a 1-point improvement, of course. But going off of like where we are and the feeling around the club today, we're all up here, right? Like we're all flying high. And last year we were not. But like we're not that different from the form that we had last year. I was just kind of going through and looking at it, and there aren't a lot of marquee wins on that list either. So I'm not sitting here beating my chest saying that we were a better team in 2023. Don't confuse it for that, because I'm not saying that either. But we did beat Newcastle, which is a bigger win than any of the wins that were on here. It was a cup match, but we did beat Newcastle. But we beat Luton Palace. We lost to Wolves, which is a really bad loss. Beat Newcastle. We beat Sheffield. We lost to Everton, which is again a bad loss. We lost to United. We got embarrassed, if I remember right. And then we beat Brighton. That was our December of 2023. So we played one less match, which would have been a cup match. We played the exact amount of Premier League matches, and we scored 1 point less. The teams aren't that different, to be completely honest. And we lost games that we should have won in both situations. It's an interesting kind of retrospect on what happened versus what we just went through.
But I will say, if you look at that in 1 month, 1 point improvement for the month. We play a 9-month season. You do 1 point better each month. That's a 9-point improvement. That's a huge improvement year over year for any club. Manchester United would kill for a 9-point improvement right now. Spurs would kill for a 9-point improvement. I think we're that. Yes, the team did not change a whole ton from last year. You got a couple new additions in the attack. But overall, this team is gelling. This team is maturing. We're seeing less yellow cards than we saw at this point last year. So if we see a point improvement every month, I'm good. That's all I can ask for.
And so I to me, that's a very, very slippery slope, because if you look at who you play, right? If you're constantly losing to the same teams, right? Let's say your schedule is changed a little bit. So like one month you have two big teams, and then let's say your schedule next year you have one big team every month, right? Yes, the numbers are going to look better month by month, whatever. But if you're not making those improvements, I think to Parker's point of what are we doing against the good quality teams, right? We know we struggle with the lower teams. We know that. It's been Chelsea's MO for I don't know how long, right? That's how we got the name Charity FC. But we're not competing, at least in a manner where I have confidence saying, hey, we could probably win, a match against not now, but previous Man City, right? Go into Liverpool. I wouldn't see us beating Liverpool, right? There are still other teams that would make me nervous. Arsenal, honestly, I think Arsenal would beat us right now. So unless we make those jumps, then I think it's kind of business as usual. So yes, if we pick up a point per, that's great. But if there are other things around the schedule, it could be just kind of all for naught as far as what those results actually entail. But I get what you're saying, right? I'm obviously nitpicking at this whole thing. I
Yeah,
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, right? It's improvements overall. Yes, a 9-point improvement on the season. I'm all for it, right? Everybody's all for it. But I think it's different as far as how we're looking month to month, and if you look at strength of schedule and stuff like that. So
you guys are talking about strength of schedule like we're an SEC team scheduling Missouri School of the Deaf coming to play us to beef up our win loss total. We play what's in front of us. Like Chelsea doesn't make the schedule. They don't determine who's getting relegated and promoted. By the way, I've been to Missouri School of the Deaf. It is a beautiful campus. I will say that. Um, but you can only play what's in front of you. And same goes with the conference league. Yeah, like you don't put much stock into it. We still won them, right? We still went out there. We played. We won. We scored goals. And if you look at the season as a whole, we're scoring a lot more than we were last year. Well, I don't know about a lot, but we're scoring more than we were last year. Um, there's those improvements there, and
Mhm.
for for you guys to all of a sudden expect a team that snuck into a conference league spot last year, snuck into a conference league, to now demanding that we challenge City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and be like, oh, well, we need to beat them. Like point at a time, guys. Point at a time. And
That's
year
not
over
correct.
year over year, if you can, maybe not even a 1 point improvement per month because that's a lot. 5-6 point improvement over the course of a year, perfect. And then the next year, maybe instead of losing to Liverpool, you snatch a point. Improvement. It's these little things. You can't go from the bottom. You're not Drake starting from the bottom and now you're here. Yeah, this is a gradual process, guys. There's a runway that we need to give the manager,
What if we're Leicester? If we're Leicester, can we start from the bottom? Then we're here. They
and
went up.
then go back to the bottom.
Also, that's not the argument. We're not saying that we should be competing with these teams right now. We know that we can't. We're not in that position. We're not a good enough team yet. But
Then why do you
what we're
guys say it
saying,
every week?
what we're saying is that's how you compare yourself. That's how you compare yourself. Once you feel like you can challenge these teams, if you're still losing to the same, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th place teams year after year, there's still a problem. I don't see
So what
us.
about City losing to Palace every year for like 3 or 4 years? Did City have a
That's
problem?
a city. That's a city problem.
They won the league. That's
We don't.
It's a
it's not a
problem.
problem. It's not a problem to have a bogey team. Everyone has a bogey team.
Why do we have 7?
We've beat a
That's
lot of
the
those teams
problem.
this year. We've beat
That's
a
the
lot of those
problem.
teams this year.
So one other thing. Well, two other things. One, I don't like Maresca's post game today because he said the team is tired. When the team gets to rest midweek because they don't have to play in the Champions League, they don't have to play in the Europa League, they get to play in the Conference League, and they get to play their entire B squad. So the team shouldn't be tired, should not be tired. Like this is the first time that our A squad or our, I believe Matt, you called it a B plus squad. and then our A squad had to go out in the same week. This is the first time it's happened all year, really, like that we've had multi-match, week where our starters had to play, on a Wednesday and a Saturday kind of a thing. So like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that the team is tired. I think the team might be mentally tired, or the team might be sick of hearing some stuff, or the team might be like frustrated. But I don't think the team is physically tired. Not when you have a bunch of 22-year-olds that really play once a week. The other thing I was thinking about is where we sit on the table is fourth today. Liverpool's in first with a game in hand. Arsenal's in third with a game in hand. Forest is in second. And then we're at fourth, Newcastle fifth, City sixth. If I'm honest, the teams that I feel like are better than us today are Liverpool, Arsenal, City. So I think fourth is fair. I don't think Forest is a better team than us. I think we've beaten Forest, and I think we can show that we are a better team than Forest overall. So I think that overall we should finish above them. But I think four is a fair result of where I think we are as a team today. I think four is a fair result. There's not many teams that I look up at and say we're better than, and I don't look at many teams below us that I say that they're better than us. I think we're better than Newcastle. I think we're better than Bournemouth. I think we're better than Fulham. I think we're better than Villa, Brighton, Tottenham. Like, I think we're better than those teams. I legitimately do. So I think fourth is a fair assessment of the first half of the season so far.
Yeah, I would agree, considering we were all predicting, I think, sixth, seventh, and eighth is what the three of us predicted. Four is fair for what we've been doing, and it's exceeding our expectations, which is just another step in growth. Secure Champions League, and you're going to go from there.
And the real test happens.
So we did mention Christopher Nkunku earlier. Parker, again, pre-pod, you mentioned, well, he doesn't really, well, we had all talked about, he doesn't really fit as a 9. You mentioned he doesn't really fit on that left side. He's been left out of many a Premier League start, usually coming on very late to give Jackson a break. Smoke around him leaving. Apparently he's already being eyed up by several clubs. Ben Maresca has already said, hey, I'm not going to stop him if he doesn't want to be here. Does Christopher Nkunku fit into this system? And if not, is he gone in January?
Start us off, Collins.
Well, I like, through much of this season, how Enzo Maresca has been pretty ruthless with how he addresses players, right? It's very much hey, if we're not vibing, like, you're not part of this group, right? Ben Chilwell is example A1. I would like to see him be similarly ruthless with a player like Nkunku. I like Nkunku. I like what he did in Germany. I think he's a very talented player. But Maresca's on a 5-year contract, right? So he's the idea is for him to be around for a while, for his system to be in place and to build. If Nkunku doesn't fit in that, there's no point in holding a roster spot, especially with FFP and all that. I would sell him outside of the league. I wouldn't sell him to Manchester United. But I think you can get somebody in who could replace him and fit a role. But if Nkunku is going to be floating around on big wages, playing odd job roles in this squad, it doesn't seem like a good fit for me. So set that precedent early. If you don't want to be part of the project, cool.
I think there is a spot for him, but you have to figure out the wings first. Right now, I think and Collins, I know we talked about this. We kind of rated our wingers a few weeks ago. The only way I can see this working with Nkunku is if he does take a flat out number 10 spot, Palmer on the right, and then you figure out the left, have Neto or Sancho or João or whoever. I think that's how it can work. But you have to put your foot in, put a line in the sand and say, Noni, figure out your shit, or you're not playing. Right? We saw he was out for the Fulham game. He wasn't even on the bench. He was just out, right? For some issue. Habitual. That's kind of what it's been for him, regardless of who the manager was. For him to come back the very next game, Ipswich, and start and absolutely shit the bed, that's on Maresca. He needs to figure that shit out. I think Palmer in this game, I think if you would have moved him to the right, you sub off Noni, you bring on Jackson. So if you do a Noni for Jackson, you move Jackson up top, Nkunku falls back to the 10, Palmer moves out to the right, and then you have Zhao on the left. You now have two very creative wingers in Zhao Felix and Cole Palmer. You have Nkunku, who can be kind of that body in the middle, who can also play off of whoever, and then you still have Jackson making his runs. I would have liked to have seen that, and I think it can work, but Maresca needs to give it a shot and see what happens. Right now, I haven't seen him do that, or at least have, I wouldn't say the courage. I haven't seen him really need a reason to try it, but at the same time, when you have a run of form like we're having right now, why not try it? Why not shake something up and see what happens? I think it could work, and I think we might be surprised as far as what happens. And this is regardless of who you put on the left. If you don't want Zhao there, fine. You put Neto on the left. We know he can play that spot, right? You have Sancho who can also play out there. But I think if you run that triangle on the right with Jackson up top, and Nkunku as the 10, and then you have Palmer on the right, I think you have a lot to work with on there, and then whoever's on the left can figure it out from there and kind of hop in. But that's how I think it could work, and I'd be intrigued to see how that would play out.
Call me Mr. Two Things today, because I have two things to add. And I mean this with no disrespect to Ipswich, but I feel like if we played our full 11 Europa League team, we would have had a better shot of winning today. And if we played our kind of mismatched team, because that 11 has gelled pretty well together and played pretty decent football together and scored a lot of goals together and played some halfway decent teams across the world. So I think like the continuity of how we've run that 11 versus the starting 11, I think we probably should have kept to that. Again, playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. I think Nkunku has to stay though because of the Conference League. I think everybody has this contest circled as a must-win for Chelsea this year, and if my memory serves me, Nico Jackson cannot play in the Conference League, right?
They resubmit rosters now that the knockouts are in, but as of the group stage, he was not in it.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know how that worked. So, whether you want Jackson out there every other week, for that, I'm not sure, but I think that team has something to prove together, and give them something to compete for, and they've done a pretty damn good job of today. And I like to shit on that contest because it's not a real test of our skills, and it's not a real it's not the Champions League, and it's not something you have to focus on because we have our full B team playing in it. But I like it for our B team. It gives us a chance to watch our B team. It gives us a chance to see guys like Mark Yu go out there and see what they're made of. Viega, same thing. Dewsbury Hall, same thing. Otherwise, we're not going to get to see him play, right, Collins? Like, we got to have a contest like this in order to see some of these guys get consistent minutes. I know as the season has moved on and we've had some injuries, some of that has bled into our starting 11, and it's gotten a little bit cloudy on who's in what camp right now. We don't have Mudryk, and Noni is proven to be difficult. So where we look like we had 4 pretty deep wingers, now it looks like we have 2 or 2.5, if you want to throw like Nkunku into that discussion, or Felix as well, right? So all that to say, I think he has to stay through the end of the year, because I don't believe people are going to bid a number that makes sense for us to get rid of him mid-year, and I think we need him for the run of contests that we have coming up. I would like to see us get that win, um, take care of business, because I think it'd be an absolute laughing stock if we don't. I'm going to say that today on December 30th, that it will be a laughing stock if we do not win this contest. We've made a mockery of this contest so far. We have demolished teams in this contest, even the good ones, even the ones that are top of that table. We've done a lot of damage to. We should win this one, no problem. And if we don't, it's going to be bad, just overall bad. So we need to win it. I think it's worth keeping a guy like Nkunku around for that. Give him something to play for. I know he's not happy. I agree that the long-term vision might be different for that than if he leaves at the end of the year. Fine. If he doesn't fit and we get an offer for it, great. Move on. Do something else. But right now, I think we keep.
Collins, question for you. Who would be your replacement? So if we sell Nkunku in January, who is your replacement?
I think it's got to be a winger. We have too many number 10s. Again, I think we're set on striker. Yeah, I'd go a 10 or a 6 to replace him. Or not a 10, a wing or a 6 to replace him. Rashford is the low hanging fruit, right? He's cheap, he's available. But there's some other Premier League proven players out there. Miguel Almiron apparently available for pretty cheap. I saw he was being bid on by Orlando City or something like that. But yeah, there's players out there, and all you need is a guy to fill a role to play in a B squad. I like Nkunku, but I worry about him ruining what's in the clubhouse. So I wouldn't replace a like for like with him. I'd go out either a wing or a 6.
I hear you with striker. Like, I'm not looking to like replace Nico, but we do need a backup striker.
Yeah, I could be persuaded into it depending on who it is. Do the old MLS loan to the Premier League for 3 months, whatever it is. Bring back Giroud.
I'm very far off of the like we need an Oshiman camp. Like, I think that ship has way sailed, and I don't want to see it. I know a lot of people still do, but I don't. For lack of a better term, I think we need another Nico. I think we need another young, unproven, with a shot, with a high upside. And I think like you could be that. He's had some good moments. He's had some bad moments, to say the least. But he could kind of work his way into it. I'm intrigued to see it. I wouldn't mind seeing him get some real minutes at striker from like a 75th minute on kind of a situation to see if he can grab a goal or two, or to start a game with Nico coming on at half if he's not doing great, kind of a situation. But my thing is that we have subs that we don't use. So if half of our bench is unused already, we might as well give a guy a trot and then sub him off at halftime or earlier if need be, if things aren't going well. It's not like we have a substitution problem where we can't get everybody in.
So you've swayed me on the number 9 with the first part of that there. Matt, here's a couple names for you. Premier League guys who would come in and not expect to start right away but could do a job. Mateta from Palace and Mbuemo from Brentford.
Brian Mbuemo. I don't hate that. Mateta, no. I haven't seen anything really worthwhile out of him. He doesn't have a great scoring track record. So I wouldn't go that route. Yeah, I personally don't know who I would take. I I've seen the rumors, about Benjamin Sesko, but I'll be quite honest, the last thing I want is another player from RB Leipzig to come to Chelsea. So I'm just gonna go out on record and say that. It hasn't worked well for us. The other one that is kind of interesting to me, and we jokingly talked about Liam Delap, right? That could be fun. Like, could be fun. We have to pay a shit ton for him, but that could be fun. The other one, who again we'd probably have to shell out some money for, but Evan Ferguson from Brighton. He's young, he's 20. Um, you know, I like the way that he plays. He's more physical, I think, than Nico. It gives you kind of that different look. He's done pretty well in his first, what, 2 seasons, I think he's been at Brighton. I think if a price is right on him, coming to now getting into a big squad and having more football where you are playing more consistent minutes, even if it is in the conference league, right? It's still consistent minutes, right? It may not be Premier League all the time. You may come in as that late sub, but it's still consistent, and you're going up against the best of the best. So I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind taking maybe a flyer on him, and just see what happens.
My only concern with Ferguson is he this year is coming off of a ankle ligament surgery, which led him to a 33 match scoreless streak.
Mm-hmm.
So, guy who can't consistently hit the target and a guy who has had a ligament surgery are not, to me, not a prime Chelsea candidate.
Well, for a while, Nico couldn't hit the target either, but it worked out.
No ligament damage though, so he's
I'm
got
just
50%.
saying. I'm just saying.
I thought that's who Collins was referencing when he said the guy that can't hit the target meets the guy that has ligament surgery.
Oh, Timo Werner, how about that? Bring him back.
Nah, RB Leipzig, bro. I already said it.
Seriously. I've come to the conclusion in my own head of there's only one player that I would splash cash for. And I thought about it. He was a rumored guy. He was a talked about guy coming into the season. And it didn't go anywhere. It didn't. None of the rumors. There was very few rumors, and it didn't go anywhere. But it's Isak. He's a guy that I think actually really could fit into our team really, really well and would be worth the cash. Newcastle has had a very up and down yo-yo-y kind of year, and they had a run of form where they weren't great, but Isak still finds ways to score. And when they're playing well, he scores, and when they're not playing well, he still scores. He's got 12 goals this year and 17 appearances. Like, he's a guy that's pretty consistent about how he goes about his business, and I like the way he plays. I know that it's a bigger signing, and I know how we all collectively feel about bigger signings at the number 9 position. He's one where I'd be really all right with the flyer on it. He's 25. He's Premier League proven. He does it fairly consistently. He had a good year last year. He's having a pretty good year this year. So yeah, he's a guy that I could really see doing some damage for us. Challenging Nico kind of week in, week out, even potentially upseating Nico and kind of not relegating Nico to other competitions. But like, again, we have to think about this team as if we're a Champions League team next year, which we're slotted for halfway through, we need more than one like really good striker, which makes things hard, right? Like we do need somebody that can play Champions League minutes, that's done it, and that isn't going to be a complete step back because we can't run our guys ragged. It's not going to work.
Well, as we head into 2025, as is customary, you got to have a New Year's resolution. So I ask you too, what is your Chelsea New Year's resolution for 2025? I'll start.
Yeah, please do.
I'm just going to vibe second half. I'm going to vibe for 2025. Today, I was reactionary in the moment, and I moved on right away, and it felt great. I really wasn't stressed about this one. It didn't hurt the rest of the day. I like that. So my goal is I'm going to continue to do that through thick, through thin, through all of it, which, as a bonus resolution, means I will not call for the manager to be sacked in 2025.
Just other teams.
Boy, who would have never guessed that?
You got anything, Matt?
Yeah, I'm going to take a page out of Collins' book. I'm going to state the obvious. I'm going to keep being a Chelsea fan. Jackass. No, Collins, I love you. I love it. All good, all fun. So mine, which mine is going to be to actually have some restraint with Collins. I'm going to actually try to have some restraint. Not a lot, but more than it's been, I would say, in the last probably month and a half. I'm going to make a valiant effort to understand his side of the argument, whether it's reactionary or if he's just vibing. I will internalize those thoughts. I will text Parker my thoughts, and then I will come back to the group chat and present my arguments as such. That is my resolution.
That's exactly what I did today. Collins had a cheap shot lined up, and I wasn't going to say it because it wasn't fair, and it's the wrong point to make, and I wasn't going to make it. So I texted Matt to just like get it out. So I love that, Matt. I am going to resolve to give Maresca more of a chance. I haven't been very high on him this year. Um, a lot has to do with what he gets to come into versus the state of the club the last couple of years. I think he's incredibly fortunate to come into a situation that's better, that's more groomed than anyone else had to go through. He gets to avoid a lot of the bullshit that everyone else had to deal with. So I think he gets somewhat of a free pass. I think he gets somewhat of like a grandfathered in situation, which lucky for him. And you know, we signed him to a long-term deal. But I've been putting him under a microscope more than I put most managers under a microscope. And then I'm reactionary to situations when we don't perform. I will try to revert back to my managers get too much credit when they win and too much blame when they lose. And I tried to do this today. If you go back and read my text, I didn't say Maresca sucks, fuck him. He should be doing this, he should be doing that, he should be doing that. I blame players. I try to blame players because the players are out there doing this stuff. I blame Noni today. Noni sucked. Matt, you said it a couple of times. Noni was terrible today. He was terrible today. And I think he deserves more blame than Maresca. He's got a shit attitude. Now it's up to our guy to either A, fix him, or B, bench him because of that attitude. So I think it is on our manager to sort of manage the situation because now he's seen how shit he can be. But the guys that are out there deserve blame equally or more so than the manager because the guys that are out there, you know, push and pull and do this and do that, and Disasi screws up, and then we score. And then they score a goal. Jorgensen messed up and conceded a penalty. Right? We didn't even talk about that today, but he did. He screwed up. He misread the situation, conceded a penalty, and was well taken. So that's the story of today's game. And then Cole Palmer hits the post, and we get close with a Joao Felix equalizer that gets called back on offside. Like, it's the story of the game today, and it sucks, but I will try to give Maresca more of a pass. I think he's done well. I think the team's in a better spot than they were last year. I also think that Poch would have improved on his results as well because he was trending positive too, right? Like I guess that's been my whole kind of argument about it is it's not because Maresca's a brilliant genius mind, manipulator manager. I think he inherited a good situation, which had a young team trending positive. But I will try to give him more grace in this new year, Collins.
You know what? But first of all, I appreciate you guys thinking of resolutions. But after hearing that, we're going to scrap this segment because this is going to make our pod sound like NPR back in 2025. Matt, I vow to call you out on your eye test bullshit and reference Jorginho all the time. Parker, I'll figure something out for you, but your stupid data and analytics, we'll go after that. Fuck you guys in 2025.
I love it.
So on that note, Mr. Two Takes, any closing thoughts?
2 chains. It's been a hell of a year, boys. And through all the bullshit, through all the ups and downs, we're in 4th place in the Premier League. We've got a team that looks relatively dangerous most days. We're gonna sit here and bullshit about it and criticize it and dissect it and analyze it. But overall, we're all right.
Matt, how about you? Any closing takes for 2024?
We're better than we thought we were.
I like it. Well, make sure to subscribe, rate, review, follow us on social media at Flag Down Pod, all that good stuff. But more importantly, Happy New Year to all of our listeners. Certainly appreciate you guys being with us in 2024. And from all of us here, cheers to 2025.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.